Welcome to today's episode of Council Countdown. My name is Chloe G, and I'm here with our Public Information Officer, Ms. Hannah Nichols. Today, we have the Finance Administration and Economic Development Committee meeting starting at 3 p.m., and that's our only meeting for today. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter day compared to usual. Hannah, would you like to tell us a little bit about what we can expect, minutes, agendas, packets? Anything?
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, Chloe, it's a shorter day today. The agenda is pretty straightforward. On the agenda today, we're going to hear a report on the county's 2024 compensation and classification study. So I do believe we've got the consultants here that are going to be making a presentation to council. And then after that, we're going to hear about the establishment of the county's internship program. So they're presenting a resolution that would have all of the policies and procedures that would go into that program in it. I think that's going to be done by HR Director Catherine Mead, and that should be really exciting to see because I don't think we've ever had interns or been able to have interns. So
I think maybe some departments, but not all. So I agree with you. I think that's a great way to expose people to the county, what jobs they have to offer, and maybe, help some people find what they want to do. So.
Yeah, it's a very exciting initiative. And then after that, we've got some additional notable items, mostly just the EMS and Medevac services contract for Defusky Island. And there's going to be a discussion on local hospitality and accommodations tax awards. That was a pretty quick gloss over, but like I said, it is a straightforward agenda today. We don't have a council meeting tonight, so this is our only meeting for today. As always, if you're following along at home, please visit BeaufortCountySC.gov. That's where our agendas, meetings, packets, everything gets posted. So definitely a good resource to check out.
Yeah, so anything that interests you and you want to hear more about it, do exactly what Hannah just said and check it out on our website. But we do have a couple of announcements to make. As everybody may know by now, hopefully, it is hurricane season. That runs from June 1st through November 30th. And Beaufort County is urging all residents to go ahead and get prepared now before a storm hits. They are predicting a pretty active hurricane season, so it's important to take those moments prior to get ready. And to get ready, we first want everyone to know their zone, because in South Carolina, state and local officials issue hurricane evacuations based on your zone in the coastal counties. So know it with the SC Emergency Manager mobile app or hurricane.sc, South Carolina's online hurricane guide. Also, you should be preparing your home, so do some safety checks. Make sure that your home is able to withstand a hurricane. Have your roof inspected, double check your shutters, make sure your insurance policies are all in place for any types of damages that a hurricane can cause. Make a list, take photos, and find a good spot for all of your important belongings. And then remember your route. Be aware of the closest hurricane evacuation route ahead of the upcoming season. This is going to allow for the most efficient exit possible. Once you've learned your route, stick to it. And we also encourage people to maybe not listen to your GPS, but remember the blue hurricane signs and stick to those, because those oftentimes are the most efficient way to get to safety.
Thank you so much for those reminders. It is definitely an important time to be aware of all of that. And for all of those weather nerds out there, I don't know if you noticed, we do have a spot of interest already out in the Atlantic with a 30% chance of development. So it's time to be following your news stations and make sure you are prepared. So thank you.
And follow us on all socials. We will make sure to keep everybody updated. As if something were to develop, you can check us out and, like she said, follow the news stations online, however you are able to find your news.
Absolutely. An additional announcement, Beaufort County is hosting a public meeting on Thursday, June 27th, for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive Sidewalk Project. The meeting will be held from 5 to 7 at the St. Helena Branch Library. This pathway project is one of the 14 priority locations that were approved in the 2018 1-cent sales tax referendum. At this meeting, staff will present the proposed design for the 5-foot sidewalk. It's going to be a very informal, drop-in format, so there's not going to be an official presentation, but pop by, you'll see the plans, you'll see the designs, you'll get to talk to the engineers working on it, and you'll hopefully decide whether or not that pathway is going to be good for you.
And another just real quick announcement, Beaufort County's Bruce Edgerly Playground, located at the Port Royal Community Center, is going to be closed this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The county will be installing an irrigation system and putting down sod. While the work is being done, the gates will be locked and signage will be installed informing the public. For other Parks and Recreation locations, please visit the Parks and Rec website at bcsrec.com.
So the license fees are $100 a year for the first vehicle and $50 for each additional vehicle. And you can ask questions or get more information by contacting the Solid Waste and Recycling Program Manager, Victoria Hoffman, at victoria.hoffman@bcgov.net or 843-255-2735.
And that is all the time that we have for today. Stick around for just 2.5 more minutes and you will be able to see our meeting. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we hope you stick around.
I'd like to call the Finance Administration and Economic Development Committee meeting to order. It's Monday, June 17th, 3 p.m. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a quorum for our committee meeting today, and public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. And if I could ask for someone to approve our agenda today.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Thank you. And is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we will approve this without objection. Is there any objection? And there is no objection. I don't think we have anyone online today, do we, Sarah? Everyone's here in person? Okay, all right, good. And then I would ask for approval of our minutes from May 20th, 2024. Someone can make that motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you,
from
Ms. Howard. And is there a second?
I'll second
Ms.
it.
Tabernick, thank you very much for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll get approve this without objection. Is there any objection? And seeing no objection, approval of the minutes for May 2024. And this brings us then to our citizens' comment period. Is there anyone in person or online that would like to speak during our citizens' comments? And seeing no one, we will then close that and move on now to our Assistant County Administrator report. It's actually our interim county administrator, but Assistant County Administrator, Mr. John Robinson. Thank you for being here today.
How are you, sir?
Great, thank you.
I'm wearing a different hat today.
All right.
Many of them fit my head. Oh, I just wanted to talk to you for a few minutes and talk about the finance department and basically tell you everything's going to be all right. I met with finance staff last week after Denise Christmas's departure on June 7th. That was Friday, wasn't it? Oh, days go by fast. So I was able to meet with finance staff last week, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in the interim. So I'm far from a CFO, but I'm filling that role, doing approvals and all those other kind of things that the CFO would normally do. Staff right now, Janet Andrews is the senior staff member present, so Janet is managing all the day-to-day operations, as well as Christine, who's here. Christine is helping troubleshoot problems, so she's communicating between Christine and Valerie, are communicating with Miss Christmas throughout this transition process. So we kind of limit, I'll tell you a little bit about the contract we have, to limit the exposure that we have and make sure that all of our problems are being solved and managed properly. So I've been talking to them daily, and they're helping me get through things and make sure that I'm approving things appropriately as we move forward. I wanted to mention again, Ms. Denise, while she resigned her position with us as of July 4th. The following week, we entered into an independent contractor contract with her for a specified period of time and a specified scope of work. And that is for her to help us manage the closeout process. So we have a soft closeout that transitions our 2024, that closes out our 2024 budget. That happens on June 30. And then the hard closeout, which is later that month, or later the next month, the end of August. So that contract with Ms. Christmas, because of her expert knowledge of our systems, will help us close, or help staff close out those two things. So that is her independent contract that we have specifically for the length of time in those two items. So all that was to say that I wanted to make sure that you were comfortable that our finance staff is, while we're less people than normal, everything's going to be okay. Our finance staff is professionals. They know their jobs. They're doing their jobs. And anytime there's an issue that I need to get involved in or to approve something, they're letting me know, and we're walking through that and getting things done. Any questions about what we're doing over there?
No, we appreciate you doing that. Obviously, as the new county administrator comes in, we'd like him to make as many choices for hires as we can. So I know you're
Absolutely.
wearing many, many hats. So thank you for taking
Yes,
care
sir.
of those things and filling in as much as you have. So thank you.
There's an opportunity for a great plug there. We have had the CFO position posted and open for quite a few weeks now. We've had many folks open it and look at it. The new system that we use in HR for recruiting kind of tracks people that look at it and open it. We've had several applications, some well-qualified folks. Staff has also worked on different opportunities for Mr. Moore when he arrives. So we have a number of applications to review of qualified candidates. We have opportunities for some qualified, let's say, retired CFOs who can maybe fill the position on a temporary basis, as well as done some research for for, I thought it was mine for a minute, as well as opportunities for private firms like audit firms and financial firms that may be able to provide that service for us. So when Mr. Moore comes on board, we have a lot of options to look at for, to fill those roles. So if anyone's out there, look on our website and apply. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, John.
Oh, yes.
I appreciate it.
You've done an incredible job as an
Yes.
intern county administrator
Yes.
and handling it professionally, bringing Mr. Moore in. And again, we appreciate all you do and all you've done. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, let's move on then to our agenda items. Number 8 on our agenda, first agenda item, recommend approval to council of a resolution adopting the 2024 county compensation and classification study final report. And this is Ms. Catherine Mead, who is our Human Resource Director, and Dr. Russell Campbell, Senior Vice President of Management Advisory Group. And I think what we're looking for today on this, obviously everyone can go back and read what we've got as our study, but what we'd like to hear, Ms. Mead, if we can, is the purpose of the study, the findings of what you've got, your recommendations, and then our next steps. And again, I'm not trying to narrow you down, but that's kind of what I think that would like to kind of hear. Obviously, with all the information we have already given to us in the study itself. So, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yes, we already provided with you the full recommendation, which I believe was over 100 pages. So we have Dr. Campbell here, and I will introduce him shortly to give you a recap of what you're looking for. But as we've stated in previous milestone markers where I've come before you to talk about check-ins of our study, that we would come back with the final presentation with MAG. And so here we are today. As a quick reminder, I don't want to take up too much of Dr. Campbell's time, but as a quick reminder, the implementation costs that you are going to hear today is already accounted for in the proposed FY25 budget. So I think that's very important to notate there. And one of the goals that we had with the study was to become an employer of choice, and I think we are well on our way and meeting that aspect in terms of compensation with the implementation of this. What I am asking from the committee today is to adopt the pay grades within this full study report. You're going to see a lot of very good information on policies for maintaining our plan, and I do want to recognize those, but also have the opportunity to review that with Mr. Moore when he comes on board with us, to give him an opportunity to provide feedback. And I just learned from Dr. Campbell that he just completed a study in York County in the last year, so Mr. Moore should be pretty familiar with this process. Another point of discussion I wanted to put out there very quickly is the public defender. We've had a lot of talk on that over the years. I brought forth the May 1st Finance Committee meeting that county administration, legal, public defender had just determined that they would be a part of our comp and class. We were very far into the process with MAG, so I took that independently and worked with the public defender staff. So there are recommended pay grades in there that also Dr. Campbell was generous enough to take a look at and give his stamp of approval, I believe. And I just wanted to take this moment to give a big recognition to county staff. The participation with this study was incredible. It was over 95% participation, and that's huge when you're talking about an organization of this size. So I just want to thank all county staff that participated with this study. And I will, without further ado, hand this over to Dr. Russell Campbell, who is the Senior Vice President with MAG.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, fellow members of Beaufort County Council. I want to say thank you for giving me an opportunity to come and share with you what we've been working on for the past 4 months. What I'd specifically like to do is give you an overview of the process and methodology that we use to design the new compensation system, talk about the comparable organizations by which we compared you to, share some anecdotal comments about some of the findings, and of course, if there are questions, I'll be happy to entertain those. If we can get it up on the screen there. All right, thank you. I've been doing this for about 25 years. I've done 300+ studies around the country during that time frame. I've worked in all 46 counties at some point in time during my career. We're a company that specializes in working exclusively for government. All of our client base is either municipal, county, or public safety, or school systems. And we're headquartered out of Fairfax, Virginia, but we have offices in Columbia and Spartanburg, South Carolina. So got a little technical ditch there. That's okay. Why was the study needed? Over time, as jobs evolve and change, the duties and responsibilities may change, leadership in the department may change, and that may trigger some restructuring or reallocation of duties and responsibilities. So those are internal things that impact the need for change. And then externally, the labor market changes. Labor is driven by the same basic principles of supply and demand, just like any other commodity. What an employer is willing to pay for your expertise, skills, and experience is derived in the form of a salary. Best practices says you probably want to do this every 5 or 6 years. I think you were on the cutting edge of wanting to do it 2 years earlier than you probably could have done it, which is great, always anticipating change. And so we wanted to evaluate the current structure, look and identify any issues or concerns that need to be addressed in the new study going forward. One of the things that we found that by and large, the practices that have been employed here in Beaufort County with respect to salary management have been very good. The overall adjustments were, for a county of this size, relatively small in compared to some of the other larger counties we've worked with here in the state of South Carolina. Of course, we wanted to make sure what we come back with will allow you to compete and maintain your competitive position in the marketplace. We also want to make sure that we have a system in place going forward, so as new jobs are created, requests for reclasses that come in from department heads can be reviewed and analyzed and put into the same system and format that we've used to develop the new study. And then we provided some best practices guidelines in things like, in areas like, what do you start someone within a new pay structure if they have extensive experience and education beyond the minimum that was asked for? How do you handle salary increases when someone is promoted, maybe promoted multiple grades within the comp system? As well as if someone's in an interim role, how should they be compensated if they're going to be in that interim role for more than 6 months? So we provided policies to support the new system that we've come back with. The overall goal of the study in terms of scope, there are approximately 900 positions or individuals that were in the study, and there were roughly 350 different job titles or classifications subject to the study. In terms of specifics that we were tasked with designing, we captured information about the current jobs from the employees by way of a comprehensive job questionnaire that we gave them almost 10 days to complete. It was done online, hosted on our system, where they logged in to our webpage. They provided the information on their job duties, responsibilities, and the qualifications needed to hold those positions. And then at the end of that 10th-day period, they were downloaded, and I began to do the job analysis. As Catherine said, we had tremendous participation. Typically, if we can get around 80% of participation when we do these type of studies, we consider that a huge success. Here we had 95%. And the only thing that stopped us from getting 100% was probably the Treasurer's Office chose not to participate in the study, but we did include their positions. We were able to use the existing job descriptions, organizational charts, historical information on hiring and turnover from human resources, as well as our database and familiarity with other county treasurer functions throughout the state. So we feel comfortable that we have those appropriately placed within the confines of the study. And as Catherine also said, I did review the recommendations that she had came up with for the Public Defender's Office, ran those against our data that we've collected throughout the state on elected positions, solicitor as well as public defender, and we think the recommendations are certainly in line with what we would have recommended as part of the study had they been included. I'm going to talk about external competitiveness in terms of where we collected data from, identify the other county and municipalities that we looked at as a part of the review. I'll also touch on the internal relationship that's a part of the process. I will say it's often, it's frequently asked what drives the train with respect to the recommendations. Is it the internal relationships of the jobs within the county on the study, or is it the external market conditions that drive the study? The market data is more of a reference point. It lets us see where jobs are trending and prevailing rates of pay for different jobs throughout the state and throughout that occupational group. But it's the internal responsibility that ultimately defines what pay grade a job is going to be assigned to. Quick example, I finished a study 6 months ago in Dinwiddie County, Virginia. Out of 25 years and 300 studies, I found a fire department that was responsible for animal control. First time I'd ever seen that. And when I saw it, I thought it was a mistake. And the fire chief held me to task and said, I'll buy you a steak dinner if you can find any other fire department in the next 5 states over where the fire department has animal control. Needless to say, I lost that bet. But because we do the internal review and we rank the jobs based on our criteria, which I'll show you, the fire position in that county pays 20% more than the surrounding jurisdictions because he has that additional duty of a $1.8 million budget and 15 FTEs associated with animal control. So it's the internal assessment that really carries the water at the end of the day. And then we looked at different options to implement the study, trying to be following through with the council's mantra of making sure that you're good stewards of taxpayer money. And so we found what we believe to be an economical approach in terms of implementing the study, but also acknowledging that there's some jobs based on the labor market where some adjustments needed to be made. And I'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But just a couple of things that the study did not address. Individual performance has no place in a study of this type. We're not assessing performance. We're trying to determine the value of the position. So from our standpoint, it doesn't matter who's in the position. It's about the value of the job, not the value of the person. The value of the person should be determined through your annual employee appraisal. We didn't guarantee any adjustments as a part of the study. Last time I checked, I don't have any relatives working here, I don't think, other than my cousin, the chairman there. We didn't recommend reducing anyone's salary as a part of the study. Even if we found someone that was over the maximum of what we recommended, we would not recommend reducing anyone's salary. That questionnaire is what I talked to you about earlier. That's where we get the information about the job duties and responsibilities. The employees complete it. The supervisors have an opportunity to review it, but they can't change the original submission. If we see there are differences in terms of comment from the employee perspective and the supervisor, we would set those aside and we'd circle back through Human Resources and Catherine's staff to ask any relevant questions to get clarity. We consider the employees as subject matter experts, and so everyone did an excellent job in completing those questionnaires. In terms of the criteria we use to rank the jobs under the internal review part of the project or the process, these are the 14 criteria you see on the screen that we look at, commonly known as job factors. And so we go through each one of those and we assign a rating score that ranges from 1 to 10 in each one of those categories based on my grading matrix. And as I do that, the software keeps a tally of the overall quantitative point score, and then it prints a report for me that shows me the most complex job, which job has the highest overall quantitative score. Then in descending order, it shows me all the other positions that were associated with the county as an organization. So that's how we get the internal relationship in order. Then the external relationship is where we go out and look at an agreed upon list of what we call peers or competitors. Competitors are generally those organizations that are within a reasonable geographic commute, hour and a half, within the surrounding borders of the county. And then peers can be outside of the county, they can be in other parts of the state, but there's similarity in terms of either population size and community, size of the workforce, other relevant issues like tax base and things like that, that we can draw from in terms of isolating that peer group. We came up with a list of organizations we thought were appropriate, and then the county vetted the list, and they had some additions to that list, and we added those to that process. And so these are the competitors and peers that were associated with the study. Obviously, we start in the backyard with the city of Beaufort, the city of Charleston, Savannah, town of Bluffton, town of Hilton Head, Berkeley County, Charleston, Dorchester, Greenville, Horry, Lexington, and Richland. So there were 12 specific governmental entities that were considered peers and competitors. We also do look at private sector data, but we cannot survey private companies directly because they're not bound by the FOIA statute in the state, where job descriptions and pay structures are part of what is considered public information. So we don't have a problem getting that information from the public entities, but the private sector does not have to comply and will not participate in those type of requests for information. So we go through the U.S. Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, where we collect data based on the region here in the private sector for jobs that we can match up in the private sector that exists within the county government here. And so we did include those as well because the county is competing with the private sector for similar skill sets throughout the organization. So at this point, we've gotten the individual quantitative score based on the job factor job analysis. We've got the market averages from an annual salary perspective for what we call the benchmark jobs from the peer group you see up on the screen there. At that point, we use a computer technique called linear regression, where we run a computer model that has a built-in algorithm. It predicts what the pay schedule should look like in terms of pay grades and dollar ranges, salary ranges, for all the positions within the organization. And of course, based on the overall point score, the job is assigned to a pay grade which has a salary range associated with it. So if I had to say, if I had to describe this process, I'd say it's part management science with a heavy emphasis of statistical analysis. And so we take those two sets of data, as I said, statistically mesh them together using linear regression, and then we come up with the financial impact for every department and then the county as a whole, and then we look at different types of options in terms of funding the study. This process is not unique to Management Advisory Group or I as a consultant. Any company in this business or any individual that designs pay structures has to establish the internal relationship through some type of criteria and job analysis. They have to collect market data, and then they have to use some type of statistical technique to mesh it together to where it makes sense in terms of being able to identify job values. And so out of 2,273 positions or people in the study, and ultimately we had 478 job titles because we included some jobs that were not classified previously. One of the things we also did was look to see what was a fair cost of living allowance for the upcoming fiscal year. And so we proposed a 4% COLA for the employees here in the organization, which comes to about $2.3 million. That still left 653 employees below the new minimums that we came up with as a part of the new structure, because we were migrating employees from the old comp plan over to the new. And so even after getting the 4%, some still needed an adjustment to get them up to at least the lower end of the market spectrum. So that was 653 people, and that cost was $2.8 million. And then the county had a bit of an issue with salary compression, where you may have multiple employees with varying years of tenure in their current position. Some may have been in that position 5 years, 15 years, as little as 3 years, but it kind of clustered around the lower end of the salary structure. We call it compression. And so in order to adjust that and to minimize compression going forward, we identified those employees who, based on how long they've been in their current position, salary had not rose to the level it should be. And so we identified those, and that was 393 people, and it was $1.6 million to address that. So the total annualized cost to implement the study is $6.7 million, which increases payroll by 11.52%. That does include fringe benefits costs. That's direct compensation to employees. And so when we built this structure, we talked with Catherine extensively, and she said the consensus was that the county wanted to be an employer choice. They wanted people to come work here because they feel it's a really good organization, and they pay fair, competitive wages and offer stellar benefits. In my line of work, for an organization to be classified as an employer choice, their compensation needs to be at the 70th percentile as an organization. We built a structure bringing you to that 70th percentile. And then you need to have market rate benefits in terms of the traditional health and dental and vacation and those other well-being things that we're seeing come to light these days to try to minimize employee stress and make the workplace a little less stressful from the perspective of the employee. So with all that said, we are quite comfortable saying that we believe Beaufort County, once this is adopted, will be considered an employer choice. The compensation levels are very competitive at the 70th percentile of the market. The benefits package is excellent, and so there's no reason why anyone would not want to come work for Beaufort County. Just a couple of points of emphasis. 2 departments we found suffered or lagged behind the market the most, and it's not surprising. Detention center. This is a problem that every county is experiencing, not only in this state, but throughout the Southeast. Detention is a hard place to work. The work environment itself does not lend itself to the weak-minded, and certainly dealing with some of the individuals there can be challenging. So it's hard to keep people there. And we found that as a department, the payroll for detention center was about 9.3% below where it needed to be, so we brought that up to where it needed to be. And then EMS is another area where, again, it's market conditions. They're just not graduating enough people with the EMT and paramedic certification to fill the demand, not only at the local government level, but also with the private carriers. So there's about 8.9% adjustment to the overall payroll in EMS. But EMS and detention, the detention center, that was where we found the greatest area of concern and the most pressing need with respect to departments within the county. And as I said, from a market perspective, we've gotten you solidly in that 70th percentile with respect to compensation. And so there's still some things that we need to do. We are rewriting all the position descriptions for the county jobs. We expect to have that within the next 10 days. Catherine will be coming back at some point to discuss some of the policy recommendations we've recommended, which are a little different than how you've handled some things in the past. And so we'll continue to work with Catherine and her staff over the next couple of months to wrap things up. Just want to say it's getting tougher these days to find an HR department that is professionally managed and run and has such dedicated people. And this has been one of the most enjoyable projects we've had this year. So I'd like to thank Catherine for that. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to field those at this point in time.
Sauer, go ahead.
The vacancy rate in the detention center and EMS, which one is higher, or are they about the same?
I would say detention center is
Is a higher vacancy
Yes,
rate?
ma'am.
And are they starting, and maybe you didn't look at this, so maybe that's fine. Starting out there and then moving on to other law enforcement positions, is it kind of become a training ground for?
With EMS, perhaps more so than the detention
Oh, okay.
center.
All right.
Detention center, typically when people leave a detention center, usually they go into another career field.
Oh,
They
they
find
just
that the
change.
work environment is just not something that's conducive to their personality or mental makeup, and so
Okay.
they usually move on.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr.
I enjoyed reading about the wage compression.
Yes, ma'am.
Back when I was still really working, we didn't use that term. And career path versus career ladder. I think that's very important for employees to know, because we interchanged them back in the day while I was in education. But career path, career ladder is a very interesting distinction.
Yes, it is.
And the other thing I appreciated in the study was you gave examples of incentives versus benefits. You know, things that could create loyalty to the organization that don't necessarily cost money. And I know we do many of those now, so I did appreciate seeing that. And also the proposed longevity pay policy, because we've talked about that a little bit, so I appreciated it was in here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Catherine, how many employees do we currently have? Just a rough number. Is it 1,200 still? Is that kind of,
Counting all employees or just in our comp and class
well, in
plan?
the comp and class?
Probably around 1,100.
1,100? All right, so we saw on the notes here where 673 or 93 actually did get a pay raise, which is about a $4,000 average pay raise. So that's probably 60% of the employees are gonna see a considerable bump in their salaries because of this comp and class study.
Yes. So everyone's going to get the 4% flat adjustment unless they were already above the new max. And we did identify I believe it was 6 employees that are currently above the new max. So what we have traditionally done in previous years is also a standing recommendation to continue that practice, is to provide a one-time lump sum payment to those individuals when we are doing these flat increases across the board, or merit work for, or pay for performance increases. So we are giving them something, but we're not building it into a recurring expense to the budget until they catch up with the rank, and then they will go back into the regular formation of shifting up in their pay scale.
And I would like to share one thing. The reason those 9 people in detention were at the max, because we restructured the pay plan for the detention officers. And this is not a problem unique to Beaufort County. What happens if you have several long-term employees who maybe are corporals or sergeants, and they're non-exempt, they're eligible for overtime. And so some of those folks are not incentivized to seek promotion and take on greater roles and responsibility because they're going to lose that overtime. They're going to become exempt. So they'll just ride out their time to retirement in a lower level position. Well, we restructured it so that, okay, if you want to stay in a lower level position, you don't want to assume, command responsibility or leadership position, that's fine. But that band only has so much length in it, so much width in it. And if you want to grow your compensation, you're going to have to seek promotion in order to do that, to try to get more people to want to participate in the promotion process.
All right, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Campbell. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate the report tremendously, and it addresses a lot of concerns that I had, particularly when you're dealing with compression of employees. And for years, a lot of employees just could not understand how a new person coming in making the same salary or pretty close. So you're addressing that, and you're providing us some policies for that. So I really do appreciate that. I want to go back to what you have up there, the 70th percentile of the
Yes, sir.
market. Define market for me. Where is the market?
Well,
And what I look at is the market around Beaufort County, but I know you're not looking at the market around Beaufort County. So how broad a marketplace out there are we trying to, because at some point in time, there got to be a balancing off.
Sure.
Because one of the things that are happening now is that we have employees that are good employees that are just job hopping. They go to the city, they go to the township, they come back to us to go to private practice. At some point in time, we can't continue to try to keep up with that 70% market you have here. So define that market for me.
well, we define the market as it's primarily South Carolina.
Okay.
We start regionally and then we expand out. And so we expanded up into Greenville, Richland County, over into Horry County, Charleston, and then we looked over in Savannah because that's within a reasonable commute. And so that is the market. And so the data was comprised from those organizations, primarily in South Carolina with the one data set coming from Savannah. And so as we analyze and calculate those data sets in terms of what the prevailing wage is on an annualized basis for those positions, we want to make sure that at the 70th percentile, only a third may be paying more in some areas than you are, but you're higher than 69% or 70% of the people in the market. And so at that level, your ranges are broad enough to where, based on experience and credentials, you can compete with pretty much anyone on that list to fill a position, from top to bottom, whether it's a leadership or a non-leadership position. And you're going to have to do that because there's a price to be paid when your wages fall below the 55th percentile. When you're around the 50th percentile, your applicant pools are not going to be very robust. A lot of people will look at the job postings and they'll see the pay range and they'll figure you're so far behind, even if you're willing to negotiate, you're not going to negotiate to that degree. So they just won't apply. So you get a lot of qualified people that won't even look or take the next step in the process to actually submit a resume or fill out an application. But at the 70th percentile, you're going to get robust applicant pools for jobs all across the board, from labor position to leadership positions within the organization. And that gives you an opportunity to pick and choose who you want to work for Beaufort County, because the organization is a product of the people that work for it. And you're in a service-driven business. And so a service-driven business can't succeed successfully over the long haul without competent, qualified people. And so, based on our research, that 70th percentile is key into making sure you can get the quality in terms of competency from people.
So when you look at the question that was asked earlier about career ladder, is that something that we need to, as a county, start
You have
investing
some
into?
career ladders built in where there's, and by career ladder, we're saying there are different levels within a particular occupational group. For example, at clerical level, we can have office assistant, then secretary, then administrative assistant. That's a career ladder. Or in EMS and detention, the rank structure is a career ladder. There are some other departments where, based on growth, may be considered potential for career ladders. We just, stay on top of it with Catherine to see if that's something that you want to do. Right now, I think you've got that right balance between those positions where you want to have people take on additional responsibility and enhance their knowledge, and as a result of that, there's an opportunity to move up within that field. And so we think the balance is there now, but down the road, we don't know how the labor market is going to look 4 or 5
The
years.
area I
down
was
the road.
getting after is education opportunities. And you have, we have both the technical college here and we have the university. And if we did a career ladder plan for employees as an incentive, allowing them to further their education, knowing that they will come back, is that something that's?
As Ms. Turbinick said, was alluding to, that would be more of a career mapping process where
Okay. That's the
someone
mapping
could come
side.
in,
Okay.
at the lowest level in this organization. I could come in as a groundskeeper, but I should be able to see what levels of education and experience I need if I wanted to be director of recreation. There would be a map to show me how I get there based
Okay.
on what degree I need, what skill sets I need. That is career mapping. That's a little more involved, but it's something that if you wanted to take a look at, we certainly could help you do that. It would be an appealing tool to recruit younger
Sure.
people from, the high schools and community colleges to be able to show them they could come in here, and then you can navigate your way through to the upper layers of the organization.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I had another question, but if somebody else got a question, I'll come back once I find out exactly what it was that I wanted to ask.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. York, does you have anything else, or?
Go.
We're good?
All right, there's a section on, demotion. And I wanted you to give me an example of, lowering a pay grade. I'm employed, and then the administration comes and then he lowers my pay grade.
Okay.
What would be an example of that?
There are two types of demotions. There's a voluntary promotion, whereas, let's say
Okay,
I'm
so
an
that-
employee, I come in, tell my boss that I was hired as a computer programmer, but the job is just too much for me. I want to stay with the county, but I
Right.
want to step down to a lesser role.
Okay,
That
it's
would be a
I got that
voluntary.
part, yeah.
Involuntary would be when the supervisor comes to me and says, Russell, you're a great guy, you're trying really hard, but this doesn't seem to be your niche. From a performance standpoint, quality of work standpoint, it's just not working out. And so we're gonna work with you to see what else may be available in the organization that you qualified for. And that would be the example of the involuntary. Now, one of the things that local governments struggle with, and I know why, when you have an employee who's not performing and it's an involuntary demotion, many local governments will put them in a lower level job, a lower classification job, but they'll let their pay the same. Technically, that's not a good practice because that's a disincentive to the other folks who are trying to get up the ladder to where that person was. And now you're going to give them a job with lesser responsibility, but they still keep the level of pay that they had that was primarily indicative of the job that they could not successfully do. So that can be problematic. There are some organizations that take a very hard look at that and say, we're going to put you in a job that you can do, you qualify for it, and the pay is going to reflect that. And so those are organizational issues that you have to deal with. It's one thing if you've got someone who doesn't have a positive attitude, is not trying to be a model employee. You want to try to help those folks because it's always in your best interest if you can recycle someone than letting them go because you've already invested so much in them. But if you've got someone who doesn't have the attitude and the desire to get better, then certainly it makes it easy to
Right.
reduce their pay.
I appreciate that. The reason I ask you because what the red flag went up because when you promote them up voluntarily or whatever and stuff, you don't get no phone calls, but you do the demotion.
Yes.
Yeah, you get a lot of phone calls, so I want to know how to respond, basically.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, good. At this point, I know Ms. Mead would like us to go ahead and approve the pay grades that we've got here. So is there a motion to move forward to County Council, a resolution adopting the 2024 Beaufort County Compensation and Classification Study Final Report?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, Ms. Steinbrück, thank you for the second. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection, and there is no objection, so this will be moved to Beaufort County for a resolution. Dr. Campbell, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Very good presentation, very impressive, so thank you, and the report, very impressive. Catherine, great job on this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and so let's move on then, and I think Ms. Mead, you're up again. Recommend approval to council a resolution establishing the Beaufort County Internship Program and adopting policies and procedures for the program. Ms. Mead, again, our Human Resource Director, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, we've been very busy in HR, but loving everything we're doing. I brought Miss Mary Madison with me today, and she has been very instrumental in kicking this program off for us to get it ready to bring before you today. We have been tossing this idea around for probably over a year with legal, risk management, HR. Had some encouragement from Sarah too with coordinating a meeting with us with the school district. So there is interest all around. It was just finding the time to pull it together and bring it forth. So Mary has done a tremendous job on that, which is why she's here, because if there's questions that I don't know, she is going to be our expert to assist me. But you have seen the copy of the manual that we are putting before you today for approval. In the first couple of pages of that manual, it does describe an introduction and then the benefits of a paid internship program that I think is very important to know and to recognize. Currently, the county does host interns in the IT department. The IT department has an MOU with USC Beaufort. They have had nothing but positive feedback on that experience, so we all have determined why not spread the love and make this an opportunity for all county departments that wish to participate. In kicking this off, Mary had sent out a survey to our department heads to gauge interest, and also maybe tell us some negatives that they think could come out of this so we can prepare for those. And so Mary took all the comments that were received in that survey. We went ahead and brainstormed together in conjunction, like I said, with risk and with legal to try to hit any concerns before they became an issue. And so that's how we streamlined our navigation process with building this policy. We in HR department, one concern we saw is just having that availability in the departments to have a program manager to oversee this, because we all are swamped and not maybe knowing how to get it off the ground running within their department, what items could be utilized for an intern to partake with. So Mary will still stay on as the internship manager and work with departments. It's an application process for departments to submit their request to our office to say, hey, I've got some interest here, but I'm struggling a little bit with knowing what would be a good scope of work for an intern, and that's where we can help them determine that. And I mentioned that too, that it's also optional, so it's not that we are pushing this on all departments to say you must participate. I also wanted to make a point that for county council members, yourself, this is not suited for you to have a personal internship, but that is not to say that Miss Sarah, and I think Sarah has a great interest in looking at bringing an intern to the clerk to council's office. But I was asked to bring that up today, so we can move past that. So the program is not intended for just day-to-day minimal tasks. We're not looking for departments to bring on an intern during the summer to say, oh goodness, I am 2 months behind with my filing, I need someone to help me with that. That is not the intent here, and that's where we will vet this program with the departments to ensure it is a quality program that does give that exposure to our students for a real glimpse at what this field would look like as they are starting to plan their curriculum with college and even in high school, because this will be eligible for high school students and college students as well. Funding is always a big question. We work with Denise and have continued to work with Valerie since Denise's departure. There has been $100,000 allocated in payroll contingency to fund this program in year one. We think that's a very fair amount for what we are going to be considering a pilot program. We understand we may come back with tweaks to this policy for FY26, but we think we have a pretty solid footing for FY25 for a pilot program. So the program limitations is what I call the 315s. It will be a cap of $15 per hour, so it will be a paid internship, a cap of working 15 hours per week, and a 15-week program. And we are putting that limitation out there so all students have the opportunity to apply. We don't want one intern to get in and we love them so much, which we're hoping we will, and want to keep them for the entire year and take away those spaces for other students in the community that are wanting to partake in the program. They will go through a true application process. They will go through an interview process. We are going to give them as much exposure to a real-life career with Beaufort County as we possibly can. One other thing that came up through the planning discussions was confidentiality, because we aren't going to have someone just stuck in a file room filing things away. They may be exposed to information that they will be held to a confidentiality agreement, and we've been working with legal to craft that agreement for us. These students will not be eligible for any paid benefits. They will also have a sponsored intern supervisor in their department that will, once we work with them on developing a scope of work and roles and responsibilities, will oversee that and manage that intern student during their 15-week tenure. We also will be requiring those intern supervisors to give them performance evaluations. Again, we are trying to make this as real life as we possibly can. So they'll have a performance evaluation midway through their program and then again at the end of their program. We already know that there's interest from the school districts, and once we are able to finalize this program and roll it out, we plan to network with the school districts and advertise it through them, make sure it meets their requirements and criteria, and start onboarding these interns. Benefits of this, it's a benefit for all around. It's a benefit for the student to have that exposure. I know 22 years ago when I was in college, after year one, I changed my career path or my study path and had no idea what I was doing. So this kind of gives them that experience ahead of time to keep them on track with their curriculum. And it's also a benefit to the county. The hope is that when you graduate, you know what we do here. You're experienced now. You've been introduced to local government. A lot of folks want to stay in their communities, especially when they live in a county like Beaufort County. So it gives us that opportunity to recruit them back after they graduate, already have that direct working experience and knowledge, and to help keep us staffed. And so that's what we're bringing forward. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. It's regarding section 3.1 with transportation, the use of their own vehicles as opposed to a county vehicle. Where does vicarious liability come into play on that? As far as if they're completing a work-related task, I don't know.
They will not be operating any vehicle, whether it be personal or county,
okay.
for work-related. That's, if they needed to get themselves to work and home from work.
That's fine. Yeah, this does say in here that they're going to be using their personal vehicle for completing tasks.
We
rather
will
than
update that, thank you.
Yep.
Because
All
that is not the intent.
Okay. And it says it would fall underneath
Good
their own
question,
personal
David.
insurance.
Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to point that
Yes,
out.
we will make that revision for
This meeting,
sure.
just real quick, so just my math in my head, $100,000 would cover about 30 interns for the year. Is that kind of what
The summer.
we're expecting?
The summer?
It's a year-round program,
Oh, it's year-round.
so it
Oh,
won't
is it
just be,
year-round?
it is, because a lot of the colleges actually will credit them college course hours to have the on-the-job training and experience. So I'm sorry, I did not have those numbers with me, but if we're looking at $15 an hour,
That's right, it's 29.6.
29, okay, so roughly
That's what we have
30.
budgeted as 30 internships in that $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, if there's no more questions for Ms. Mead, I'd ask for someone.
I
I'm
just
sorry,
want to
go
make a
ahead.
comment. This is really good document, and I appreciate you reaching out to the school district. And I appreciate you qualifying for council members that this is not for county council.
Yes.
Because there is a little bit, there's a little bit of a issue there.
Yeah.
And so I think reaching out to the school district is great, and I know they're excited about it.
Yes, and Sarah helped us with that coordination, and I have to truly give the kudos to this document to Mary, so thank you.
No, Jim, I
yes,
think,
good.
the program is excellent, and I wish it was there years ago, but at least we're getting a start. And one of the things that Ms. Sanders is in the back there, she talked about people basically being introduced to even her department, getting a feel for and seeing whether that's something they want to do. And hopefully, we have to start grooming our own people for certain positions. So I see this as very great for this community. I hope we can always find at least $100,000 in our budget to continue it from here on in. One of the things I smile when I kind of briefly went through there was the provision on dress code. And I'm from old school, so I dress differently. There's some young folks nowadays,
Yeah, really.
I think that policy might be.
And that's actually our policy in our county handbook, too. So, yes, thank you.
My wife and I just had this conversation this morning on dress code.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing up Miss Ebony, because I have high expectations for Miss Ebony to jump into this. And as much as she's out in the schools and the community, I will be leaning on her for some feedback as we're going through this to make any adjustments needed.
Great. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, any more questions before? Yes, Mr.
Not a
Vice-
question, just a comment. This is a wonderful opportunity. Once we do this resolution, the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber of Commerce will gladly put this as part of their Jobs Now website that has internships available.
I made a note of that last week, and yes, excited to reach out to them once we get that green light.
Looking forward to it.
All right, is there anyone who would like to make the motion to move this to county council for a resolution?
I'll motion.
I'll make that second.
All right, Mr. Bartholomew, thank you. Any more discussion?
Good job.
Seeing no discussion, we will then approve this without objection, and this will go to county council for a resolution. And Ms. Mead, thank you very much. You got a great job from you and your staff, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on then. Number 10 on our agenda, recommend approval to council of an ordinance providing for the appropriation of funds for fiscal year 2024 and 2025 generated by local hospitality tax. Mr. Robinson, our interim county administrator, and Ms. Christine Webb, director of compliance. And go ahead, Mr. Robinson. You've got the floor.
Yes, sir, thank you. So our wish today is that committee reviews our proposed budget, accepts that budget, and approves it and forwards it to council for adoption by ordinance. So I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about local hospitality, and the next one after that is very similar, is our local A-tax. So the hospitality tax, so the beginning of this process, we kind of started having this discussion sometime last year, and then during our strategic planning process, staff was given direction then to update our H-tax and A-tax ordinance, which we did a few months ago. They become effective as of July 1. And in that same vein, some of the discussion we had was, well, how can Beaufort County more purposefully use the A-tax and H-tax dollars towards county projects? The outcome of that is the budget that I will present to you. So first, of course, is our local hospitality tax. So this is referred to as 2% or H-tax. Here is from our ordinance that allows the imposition of that tax. This is an unincorporated Beaufort County on the sales of prepared meals, beverages sold in establishments, licensed or on premises consumption of alcohol. The list is there, right? That is the ordinance. Here's the list of authorized by ordinance related topics that are related activities in which A-tax can be used, or H-tax dollars can be used. tourism-related buildings, tourism-related cultural, recreational activities, historical facilities, land acquisition, river, beach, and beach access, renourishment, and the list goes on, as well as, towards the bottom, operation and maintenance of those items listed above, including police and fire protection, emergency medical services, emergency preparedness operations that directly attend those facilities. Right? And the last line there is pretty important. For all other purposes, including those set forth herein, authorization to utilize any funds from the county of Beaufort, South Carolina, hospitality tax account shall be by ordinance duly adopted by county council for the county of Beaufort. So coming forward with you today is a budget ordinance that will allow administration to use some of those hospitality tax or some of those hospitality dollars towards our county projects. So the first is a budget explanation. What I have for you is our current H-Tax fund. The fund number is 2002. The available balance of those funds, you can see there, is $5,386,898 and some change. What I also listed was the amount of funding that are encumbered presently. That's $148,346. So the total balance in that account as of today is that $5,535,000 and change. What we're asking for the hospitality budget this year, the budget request, is $7,075,000. After we remove, or if you approve that budget, that H-Tax fund balance would be $1.5 million after. Okay. Then here's where these funds comes from. This year, the expected revenue based on the past 12 quarters of income is expected to be $3,040,000. We have about $40,000 in interest income from that account, and the rest of the budget that we're proposing is made up of fund balance from that A-tax account, which is $3,995,000. The total of revenue, or the total of budget revenue, is at $7,075,000. What do we intend to do with those dollars? So here's the expenditures. The numbers off to the left are the account numbers. That 51,000 account number, that is advertising, is that account. That's $1 million budget towards advertising for the Hilton Head Airport. That's something that is a routine budget expense that we have done for several years with our H-Tax dollars. Then the 54500 account, this is Beaufort County projects. There is $4,975,000 listed in our budget to manage internal county projects. The list of those projects, of course, these dollars, even though they're county projects, they can't just be any projects. They have to be qualifying projects, as I showed you on the second slide, the list of projects or the list of allowable uses of those projects. And then the next is that 57,130 line item. So these are all inside the A-Tax budget. They'll be in our budget software this way, is $1 million towards grant expenditures. These are tourism projects. These are outside agencies that apply for these dollars, we'll have a policy on how we apply, or the requests that come in, how we approve dollars for requests as they come in. So there's $1 million there for outside request. And the last one there is $1 million transfer out to the general fund. So this has been traditionally in part of our A-Tax dollars. And the use of these dollars, that $1 million, again, has to comply with the state laws, the use of those A-Tax dollars. And these can be used for any of those expenditures And in either the two line items, either the Beaufort County projects or to the grant expenditures for tourism projects. If for some reason we have an abundance of requests for those use of dollars and council finds that they like them all and they exceed that $1 million, there's the additional transfer out that may help support either the county projects, the internal county projects, or the projects as requested from different tourism-related companies. Before I move on, any questions about that?
I have a question.
Yep, Ms. Howard.
I understand we're doing the ordinance today, but when will we see the specific list of the Beaufort County projects?
So, right now, we have, we have about $28 million in capital projects and really about $300 million in our capital project list. So the opportunity would be that we can look in our capital projects list and find qualifying projects for these funds and use these funds to free up some capital dollars.
And that will come back to county council for
Yes, ma'am.
approval? We'll see
So-
that? Okay.
So what we don't have right now is a policy on how we distribute these funds.
Right, right.
There's, in the past, there's been a staff team that's evaluated the request, but no real policy on how we distribute those funds. The thought here is that we bring this forward to committee, that this is what you ask for, we bring this forward to committee, we get some consensus that this is the right thing to do, and we'll move this forward to council. And before this goes through its third reading, so it's gonna be late in August, that we would also have a policy that supports how we're gonna distribute these funds, similar to the state ATAX system, which is an external board that looks at that, as well as what limits, whether you wanted to do it similar to the way Beaufort County contracts work now. The administrator approves up to $150,000. Committee can approve up to $200,000, and then anything that exceeds that $250,000 goes to council. That's the normal contract process that we do now. So we have the opportunity to do something like that, or when we begin to discuss that policy, then we can bring them all back to committee and council. The options are on the table, because there's no existing policy. That's one that we will write. Did I answer your question right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Glover, go ahead.
Yes. I don't know which part money comes out of, so I'm gonna ask the question.
Sure.
In my district, a lot of the H-tax, local option tax, is generated on Fripp Island.
Yes, sir.
And there are needs on Fripp Island. So my question becomes, if we are to fund projects from areas that generate those, which one of these pot of money line item would be considered for anything we will do to continue receiving tourist tax money from Fripp Island?
Yes, sir. Well, so the H-tax dollars, there's two line items there. It is that $57,130 million or that $59,100 million that are there. So we do have to be very careful when we distribute funds, A-tax or H-tax dollars, on private property or property that is gated. So the law is that it has to have public access. So when we talk about these dollars and the distribution of these dollars, we have to take those things in mind.
Yes, sir.
So there's a great opportunity on Fripp Island to use some of these dollars. We just have to make sure that we're careful and that they're applicable and within the law.
I figured the lawyers over here would.
Oh, yes, sir.
Track and stuff, so, yeah.
Well, when we begin I will say, when we begin to work on this policy, we have begun to work on this policy, but it's not nearly ready to present to you. So we need to get a little farther down the road.
Okay.
But between our finance staff and our legal staff, we'll make sure we do it right.
Okay.
And if I
Thank you, sir.
can add for just a moment, Councilwoman Howard, you had asked about projects being approved. In the ordinance, it does state that a resolution would need to come forward for the specific
That's
projects.
what, I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, Ms. Tabor,
Yes,
go ahead.
ma'am.
So I just want to point out on this slide, that's incorrect. The 1 million for Hilton Head Airport is 100,000 in the ordinance.
Oh, is it?
You gave him an extra 900,000, which will put us over the total. It's 100,000 for Hilton Head Airport in the ordinance I'm looking at.
Okay.
I mean, $1 million, a lot of money.
It is.
100,000 is substantial,
I
but
don't, let me
I'm
look
looking at
at,
the ordinance, if Sarah wants to put it up there.
no, it's fine, I have it right here.
Yeah, I just want to be careful on that one.
Absolutely. Well, maybe it is wrong in my spreadsheet. I swear I was wearing my glasses when I put this together.
That's okay.
No, you're absolutely right. There's a decimal point and extra zeros on the spreadsheet, but that is right. That should
It's
be
100,000.
100,000, not a million.
And I just want to point out while Mr. Robinson's up here, he's done a lot of work on this. Brian's done a lot of work on this, Tom. Everyone's worked on this, digging deep and looking at how we've spent the money and looking at how we can benefit the full unincorporated Beaufort County. So that's where this is coming forward, but everything would have to be approved by council anyway, how to
Yes.
spend the money.
Well, that goes back to another question.
Hey, let me ask real quick, Mr. Robinson.
Yes, sir.
So, obviously, this year, projected revenue is the $3 million.
Yes, sir.
Coming out of HSAC.
$3,040,000.
The $3,995,000 that is the fund balance, so that money's in the account. Has any of that money been appropriated for other things? I mean, so.
Yes, sir.
Perfect example is DeFusky, which is an unincorporated, and they put a lot of H-tax and A-tax in. And we've got money there, and because of a lot of different reasons, we've got $250,000 that was set aside for the bathrooms there.
Yes, sir.
So, where is that money right now? Is it part of this money that you're saying that we should reallocate? Because again, that was put towards that project in the past. So
I get where you're going. It's all in the fund balance. So while maybe there were promises made, the funds are still in that fund balance, and the documentation of where we allocated or promised money to one place or another. It's all in that fund balance that's there. So there are some encumbrances.
I saw it was only 148,000, so that's why I was.
Say again?
In your first slide, you only
Yes.
had $148,000 as encumbrances. So
Right.
I would consider that the Fusky bathrooms to encumber the money that's in the fund balance as well. If there's a project out there that has been awarded money and hasn't been done yet, that it should be an encumbrance on the fund balance that's there, because again, it's something we voted on and approved as an allocated funding, whether it's A-tax or H-tax. Is that true?
I believe you. I didn't go back and watch all the meetings to find, each time council maybe approved $250,000 for that budget. I can't find a document that says that we have $250,000 approved for that. That's part of this process that we're trying to do, is to document and track what council's wishes. So there was really, as far as staff went, there was no policy on how we distributed those funds, and then tracked what was being used.
Well, it was in the list of A-tax and H-tax things that we approved every year. So there is, that's what I mean, so.
That specific item?
Yes, that specific item, and other items too, that if I went back and looked, that there's probably, of the $3.9 million, there's probably a lot of things that haven't been completed yet, but money was specifically set aside for. They applied, they were approved, we voted on them. So even though there's money in the account, we voted to send that money, not just the bathrooms at DeFusky,
Right.
but other projects too.
Oh, certainly.
That were approved in all of our districts, that's probably still in that fund that was earmarked for that.
So I can talk with staff, and we'll dig back into that, and try to pull out that list of projects that maybe were previously approved, and they will certainly fit within that fund balance, within those county projects, because that's exactly the type of projects that this should fund. $250,000 is probably not nearly enough for that.
Not anymore.
No, it's not even close, but there's a real opportunity for us to well, I don't see that slide, for us to apply some of those county appropriated H-tax, and then we'll move on to A-tax dollars towards those projects that are critical. Otherwise, the only way for us to do them is to pull them out of capital improvement or ad valorem tax to do those projects. And that, like the bathrooms on Defusky, are well within, that's a perfect fit for the H-tax or A-tax dollars because it's directly tourism related.
Yeah, one-
Yeah, Ms. Howard, go ahead.
Going back to, I'm assuming that the advertising is not just for Hilton Head Airport. That's just a misnomer, correct?
No, it is.
No,
for-
that one is.
The 100,000?
Yes.
But this money's generated by unincorporated Beaufort County.
There you go.
I mean, I'm just bringing that up as a point that it's not being, it's being generated by unincorporated Beaufort County.
So Ms. Howard's talking, well, we've all talked about as a committee, that 78% of the A-tax funds are generated in unincorporated Beaufort County. And the state code says you should generally try to spend it where it's generated. This is for the Hilton Head Airport, and evidently we have a long
Well,
history of
It
giving.
doesn't-
to-
It is Beaufort County's Hilton Head
Yeah, but I'm
Airport.
she's talking about it's not situated in unincorporated Beaufort.
But it just says advertising in the ordinance that was in the packet. But if you say it's specifically for Hilton Head
It is.
Airport, I don't quite understand why it would only be for that airport when we have 2 airports in the county that are public airports. But
Well,
we can talk about that later.
certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, we have commercial service that leaves in and out of Hilton Head Airport, and Beaufort Executive does not. There's no commercial type of business that operates.
But,
Well, commercial airline, I would say, out of there.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I
go
have- I have
ahead.
2 things. One, I think this sounds like a discussion best served for a workshop later on, once we work through a few more things and
Sure.
actually have a more informal discussion about all this, or however we want to spend it. And I don't want to speak for the rest of council, but I know personally, I'd like to see boat ramps and Parks and Rec.
That's
Oh.
Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to see those 2 areas focused on for allocation of those funds.
Great opportunities for us to use these funds
You're
at our
absolutely
boat
right,
ramps.
David. This is part of the process. This is one of the steps that we have to take now,
Right.
is approving this, because then this becomes the ordinance.
Then we can work
And then we
inside
have
of
the
that.
policy next of how we're going to actually allocate that money.
Perfect.
And that's where your workshop comes in.
I like the idea of having a workshop was as we finish developing the policy
Mhm.
and talk about all the needs that we have. That's a great spot to
And
have
if
that
I know this is
conversation.
before your time, before my time.
That's right.
If I misunderstood this, please correct me. Were we not tracking the expenditures? Is that what I gathered from you?
Well, yeah.
The expenditures, no, we had,
Yeah.
when folks would apply for those funds, and we designated funds for an application, so we were keeping track of all those things. But this, like we'll say the bathrooms, that was a county project to do, to build out there. We did some design work, but the work hasn't been done, so those funds kind of remain, well, maybe they remain in fund balance until we can draw them out and put them to work.
So part of that
so-
policy would make sure that we're doing a better job tracking about
Absolutely.
workflow and everything.
So we know we have we have this much money this year to use on these projects. We bring that policy forward, we designate these projects to get done, and then we have funded projects to move forward. Prior to that, we were kind of, we've got some fund balance, we've got some projects that we need to do. When we get to those, then we'll draw the money out and use them. This is a much more streamlined system, operates much like our budget does, so that we bring projects forward to council, council approves them, we have the money appropriated, we can go and do them. And that's why I think Ms. Ward mentioned that those projects come forward and get accepted by resolution, because the ordinance already appropriates those dollars. So we don't need to redo our ordinance. We come in for one reading, we're done. We're off building stuff, as we should be.
Thank you.
You are correct. I mean, right now, when I look at this, the $3.9 million is money that is there that was probably already going towards other appropriations, other things that were approved by council in the past. The money was not used, was not built, so there might be some things that money is encumbered because we made that decision to say, yes, that's what we're gonna spend it for. Now, there is a certain time limit you have to spend it by and all those
That's right.
things.
Correct.
These
So
mon-
that's what scares me on the 3.9 million is the fact that there might be more things that we've already allocated that money for that we need to follow through with, that we as a council made that decision.
A lot of the dollars there, they roll over a 2-year period, and if they're not used or not completed, they roll back into fund balance. So, we, following through and using the dollars appropriated is the direction that administration wants to go. No more, we need to move forward with a clear ordinance, a clear budget ordinance, and a clear policy so that everything is done correctly, just no guesswork. That's the idea.
I'm glad he said that because I'm in my community right now dealing with that whole issue with COVID, et cetera, project could not have been completed over time and changing of personnels and everything else. So
Right.
I'm hoping that this will streamline that, make it more.
That's the plan. I
Okay.
had to
Thank you,
do, myself and staff included, doing a lot of research to educate myself and watch old council meetings and go back to the date and kind of figure out what was done, just enough to figure out the right way to move forward. And the right way to move forward is to clearly document the path forward, so that we're not here again next year wondering what we were supposed to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to go forward with this ordinance.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll move this forward without objection. Is there any objection? And seeing no objection, now just go to council for, this is an ordinance, so it'll be 3 readings.
Yep.
So we will move this forward then to council for first reading. Let's move on then to the number 11 on our agenda, which again, very similar, but we're dealing with A tax instead of H tax.
That's correct.
So recommend approval for council of an ordinance providing for the appropriation of funds for the fiscal year 2024-2025 generated by local A tax. And Mr. Robbins, if you can jump into this again, very
Certainly.
similar.
Very similar county ordinance on what appropriation of A tax is, as well as the permitted uses, nearly the same as H tax. There might be 1 or 2 words differently from the ordinance, but they're the same uses there. So I'll just jump right into the budget. The budget explanation, this is in our finance system as Fund 2001. Available funds as of last week were $5,490,697.67. Encumbered right now is 1.5 or $1,519,960. So there are some funds from A tax from 2 years ago because we didn't authorize, we didn't distribute any ATAX funds last year because we were at this spot. So there's a few dollars out there that are encumbered and should be in July, if those dollars are used or they'll expire, and we'll have to go back and look at some of those. So the total balance in there right now is that just over $7 million. Our request for FY 2025 is $5,252,824. And if approved, that would leave that ATAX fund balance just that $237,873.67. If those encumbered dollars aren't used by the end of the year, there'll be that fund balance that rolls. Those unused dollars will roll back into that fund balance again. So while that $237,000 looks small, a majority of that $1.5 million is probably going to roll back into fund balance. So what is the revenue breakdown, the estimated revenue for this year? So this is quarterly revenue that comes from the state, is going to total that $2,202,900. And we expect about another $40,000 in interest income. And the contribution to the proposed budget is $3,009,924 for that total budget of $5,252,824. So where are we asking to spend these dollars? First is infrastructure. So here is one of those projects, the very first one. Here's one of those projects that was funded or had some dollars appropriated in ATAX, and those dollars were sitting in fund balance. So in order to kind of avoid the situation we talked back in HTAX, we put this right in the budget ordinance. So these are dollars for Okatee River Park. Okatee River Park is that park that's just adjacent or behind the Pepper Hall development, right off 278. 18-acre property that the county bought in 2013. So this project is funded from a few different sources, just over a $2 million project. And this $1,052,000 is supposed to finish off the rest of that project. So it's already had some design work and pre-construction work and those kinds of things.
Could I ask a question about that?
Yep, good, Ms. Howard.
So how much of that was funded out of Rural and Critical Lands referendum 2018?
Yes, ma'am. So the total project, and we expect that to be just over the $2 million, Rural and Critical put $890,000 towards that project.
Okay.
And then there was some, tree restoration dollars that were in there as well, which was $300,000. So this is in addition to those to get to that over $2 million mark to complete the park.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Then next is the direct subsidies line. That is tourism-related projects similar to HTAX. Those are projects that, tourism-related projects that come forward from outside of Beaufort County for staff and committee to review and then distribute those funds. So the same policy that we talked about in HTAX would be a similar policy that we would use for these dollars as well. At some point, this is really a combination of those applications and HTAX. The application of HTAX and ATAX dollars is so similar that this really becomes $2 million, $1 million from HTAX and $1 million from ATAX towards these outside of the county related tourism projects.
Now that you said that.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember approving $2 million, but we may have over the years, or is this something new going forward? I remember.
It's all new.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Everything that we're
Okay,
doing
I just want
is
to make
new.
sure I hadn't
Yes,
missed
sir.
something. Yeah, okay, got you.
No, sir.
Thank
This
you.
is completely new process.
Okay.
And then the next line down is another direct appropriation, and that is workforce housing. So that's $300,000 from the state, or not the state, the local accommodations tax towards workforce housing. So this is a little different than the state appropriation. The state is the 15% that we had to do the study for. This doesn't require any of that work. It just requires council's approval to use those dollars to put forth towards workforce or affordable housing. So that $300,000 is there. And then the last line, I mean, it's a pretty small budget, is that grant expenditures. The only reason it says grant is that's what the line item was in our finance software, so it seems a little confusing, but that is Beaufort County projects, is $2.9 million to go towards Beaufort County projects for the total of that $5,252,824.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we still have, I remember when the state law came about that let us use money for workforce housing, do we still have to do the study legally?
For the state tax, yes.
Yeah.
So the study is nearly done. The last time Tom and I spoke about it, we had an outside agent who was putting that study together for us. And yes, ma'am, we have to complete that study and apply for that. But the funding by ordinance is in the 15%
Right.
that for the state is already in that
It's,
state
okay.
ATAX.
I just wondered about the status,
Right.
maybe reminded me about the
It's there. Hopefully we're getting closer for that.
Okay, thank
To
you.
get that done. But this is independent of that. The requirements for the use of the local accommodations tax dollars as related to workforce housing is not as stringent. So it's there ready for us to use. All right. Any questions about that one? Yes,
I
sir.
got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go back and use Defusky Island bathrooms as the example.
Yes, sir.
And also I've got All Joy Landing, which there was money set aside for the dock there. And
Yes,
then
sir.
also for beach renourishment. And those were things that were applied for out of A-tax or H-tax. Monies are there. And the council voted on those monies to be spent for those items. And so what would I need to do, or as this council, to make sure that those monies just don't disappear later this year like you're talking about?
Well, no, sir.
Because, I mean, it's actually the county's, not fault, but it's our responsibility that if we didn't spend it, I mean, obviously we had a change in administrator, and now we've lost our capital improvements person, that those folks in those districts, I'm sure all of us here have just people or funding in those districts that they're expecting us to spend that money. They're expecting us, that money to stay there, that just because of us passing this ordinance and 2 years comes up, that the money disappears. What will we need to do as a council to make sure we protect the previous commitments made by the county council?
So I like Mr. Bartholomew's comment about having a workshop. So as we develop this policy and we come forward and talk about the distribution of these funds, I think that's a perfect opportunity for for staff and council to get together and talk about these needs and decide what is the right way to move forward. This year being the first year, we need to collect those things that we talked about in the past that aren't maybe written down somewhere. I'll continue to work with staff, and we'll see if we can pull out some of those items that were perhaps discussed in the past, like the All Joy Beach Renourishment. We had some funds set aside for that, and then we found out from the state that they weren't going to allow us to do that. So those funds reverted back in. It was an OCRM kind of issue with that.
That money should still be there.
It is. It's in the
until-
fund balance.
Okay. Well,
So it's not gone, and we
Okay.
haven't lost
Which
it.
one's that?
it was All Joy
The beach renourishment.
and the dock was all one, and
That's right.
And it was all landing improvements. That was all
I got
part
you.
of
Yeah, I remember that.
part
I
of
remember that now.
part of an A-tax.
Right.
And if I may interject just
Yep.
for a moment, this Oconee River Park,
Mhm.
wasn't that already funded through ATAX?
It was.
Well,
It was,
Partly.
I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago or even older than that, but it is a project that is in progress. And that's exactly why we wanted to bring that forward and make sure that it was there, because that is a project in progress. We have open POs right now.
Okay.
So, as like Mr. Lawson is talking about, we need to make sure that we capture these projects that we approve that have maybe fallen off. This one is special because it is active, open POs. We're doing work on it now.
Okay.
So we need to
Real critical.
recapture some of those projects and fund them.
I just want to make sure that we're not duplicating something.
No,
that's
sir.
already been-
That's exactly
Kind of
why
like
we
a
kind of
tracking.
took that fund balance and we had some encumbered dollars that we know are encumbered, and everything else, it's in that fund balance. So it's not lost by any means.
Thank you.
I have a big question.
Chairman
Will
Larson.
we have public access to the Ocoee River?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay. Well, I just wonder, you've seen all the building going on there around
I
it.
know.
Yes, there is direct access.
Councilwoman Howard, I just drove it last week, and you do have access.
Okay.
uh,
All right.
And it is consistent with our easement agreements with the remaining property owners.
It is. It's right off of Graves Road. There's an
I know. I've
opening
been
there
there.
now with a
Yeah.
little gravel that goes that way. There's no road yet,
Okay.
but with these funds, we'll build it.
And
Oh, okay.
Chairman Lawson, if I may, you are correct that there were several projects that were approved via ordinance starting in March of last year. Ordinance, I assume, was approved sometime in April. So I'll work with finance and make sure that those items are, in fact, accounted for.
Okay. And again, because if it is 2 years, we still have another whole year remaining on those. And I look at some of those, it's probably some of county's responsibility because we haven't moved forward with it, that people, again, know we voted for it, know we passed it, and are expecting those things to happen without us just, thinking.
Yes, sir.
We forgot about it. So yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
since this question came up about the Ocoee Park,
Yes.
my understanding is that we should have two major access into that park, right?
I'll have to go back and look. Wait, is Chuck here? There's
Right
Chuck.
now, the major
We just got off the
access-
phone and we're talking about it.
The major access was actually down the road there, which goes through, in the middle of the park, and then we got the other one recently from Highway 170, which is more conducive for me, but is that not true?
So it's off 278.
Yeah.
So there are
278.
two pieces to this park. It runs along the marsh, and it is bisected by a drainage area. It's bisected by water. It's drainage ponds and an area of water that drains through there. So there's two accesses. One, where the light is, where you pull into that commercial area. If you drive straight all the way to the back, there is a back road that runs along behind all of those businesses. It is under construction now. If you ride all the way to the back and turn left, there's a gravel road that leads to a stop. From that stop forward is going to be the access to our parking lot on that end. If you go down Graves Road and turn left through the development, that's going to be the northern side of the area, and along that road and toward the back where what's known as the silo development that's not yet under construction, we have parking along that road to access that field on the northern part. But you will have pedestrian access through the park from our parking area to that field area and from the parking area over in the silo development in the northern end to it. So you do have two accesses that are away from each other, but the primary access in the parking lot with the bathroom, the picnic pavilion, is going to be through the commercial area to our parking lot.
One of my major concerns, when we talked about this off of Graves Road, was having basically a friendly entrance into the park. You're telling me now that that's not gonna be necessarily a friendly entrance, but we got a park on the road itself and not in the park?
I wouldn't say it's not friendly. So to go back to 2013, all of this was sorted out in a development agreement that happened over 10 years ago. All of it. So the access, the road, the shared cost, the parking, the stormwater portions, all of that is part of the development agreement. And the park development has been established and is complete based on the accesses that were provided for in the development agreement. So I don't view them as friendly or not friendly. It's a road.
But the parking would be the friendly part. Where is the parking
It's
for?
on the road.
It's on the road?
For the northern piece,
Yeah.
if you want to go through down Graves Road, turn left through the development, you can park next to the field that's in the northern part of the park. The picnic pavilion and the bathrooms and our parking area and the marsh pier, those are in the southern portions. There's going to be a walking bridge, a pedestrian bridge,
I know
and a
the
walkway.
bridges.
But you're going to access the parking area through the commercial part. That's always been the plan. That's part of the development agreement.
Oh, I don't call that friendly for me, but, and then on the 278 side, I got to meander somewhere, there's no clear vision of the park, I got to find my way into the park.
So it's behind the commercial development. If you go into the development from the light, you drive straight in, where the buildings stop, there's a road that runs behind the buildings, you turn left, and it will take you directly into our parking lot.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
It may
Okay.
be the opportune time for us to show everyone a plot plan of what it's going to look like.
Sure, yeah, we can bring that back. The concept plan, all that's been approved, the bid has been let, it's under
Because-
construction.
I think there is some confusion still about
Sure.
direct access and having to go through.
Sure.
There
That's no
is
problem. So
direct
we'll have our
access.
CIP folks send that out to everybody. That's,
I was always concerned about a friendly approach to that park.
sure.
When I come there with my hillbilly truck, I want to feel comfortable. I'm gonna be
Sure.
not called on by police to say I shouldn't be here.
No,
That's
no.
my concern,
I
that's
don't,
all.
I don't think that's a
No.
concern at all.
You're
And
gonna have
it will
direct
be
access.
as accessible as any other business that's within that commercial development area. It's, I mean, there'll be a road that leads right
I'm
through.
with you, Judge.
But yeah, we'll
Chairman.
send it
I'd
out.
like
That's
to
not a
see it.
problem.
I've driven it several times. You know, when you are at the light, you're gonna turn left, you're gonna go straight in, and then there's a road that curves to the left, and there's where the park is. You don't have to go through every other section of Pepper Hall, and it's not truly right behind the commercial. The park is, but where you're going to go is, when you turn left, there's going to be an end market right there. You go down a little bit further, and then to the left, and that's the road right to the park.
Right.
So it is a direct access to
I
the park.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
no
think
problem.
good signage will take care of a lot of the
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
It'll be intuitive, yes,
Yes.
sir. Right, thank you.
So did we have a
Can I
motion
make
yet?
can I make a motion to move this to council?
Yes, is there a second to move this to council? Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, we have a second then. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll approve this without objection. Ms. Tabernick was the first.
Yep.
And then Mr. Glover was the second. So this will be moved to county council as an ordinance, so for a first reading. Right.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Robinson, thank you very much. Let's go ahead and jump on to number 12. Recommend approval to authorize the interim county administrator to enter into a contract with Hague Point Club and Community Association Ferry Company for the provisions of EMS and medevac ferry services for Tufusky Island. And Mr. Hank, thank you for coming today. We appreciate you being here, and go ahead and you have the floor, please.
Good afternoon. I know we sent out the RFP that we put out in April for the provision of EMS service. Basically, this is our waterborne ambulance, and it's different from general transportation. And if you look through the RFP, there were weighting systems for how close the two connecting docks were. And as you see in this proposal, the Hague Point Club and Community Association they utilize their private dock, and they utilize the Sea Pines Harbor dock that they lease, so that we can have the shortest possible continuous access for our continuation of EMS evacuation services and the movement back and forth of our EMS service workers, because they change shifts at very odd times, at times early and late, et cetera. It is within our budget for the upcoming year, and the weighting systems showed the ability to deliver 365-day, 24-hour service, and they can do that. Now, the only thing that received any dings in the weighting system was just on the price. But this was a service that was previously provided as a non-enumerated part of the old contract and had to be charged for in the end.
Any questions?
I do have one, and I believe I saw it in the back of the material. I just want to confirm the Tufusky Island Council is on board with
They
this.
wrote a letter in support of
That's
this
what I thought.
proposal,
I wanted to
yes.
make sure I saw that.
And I also asked the question, there was only one bid.
Yes, there was only one bidder, and that was the Hague Point Community Club and Community Association.
I can imagine there aren't many people that run this service.
No, it's not that would have a captain available all the time and that has the two closest possible docks. I mean, we've struggled with this kind of thing over time since before I started working here, and those are just by far the two closest dots.
This is something the county is required to.
Emergency medical services.
Emergency medical services, so we have to do this. And do we have any idea, I mean, obviously this has to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, whatever, but do we have any idea of how often in the past we have had to call on this service? or
Yes, we
transport?
actually know exactly.
Okay.
Come on up.
I asked them.
Thank you, Hank.
Figured I would just give you those numbers.
So I worked right along with EMS and the Tufusky Island Fire Service to identify those numbers of emergencies. And it averaged about 52% is visitors to the island and 48% residents. And the average is right around 70 responses per year. It changes. Some years it's 55 or so, and other years it's a little higher. But right around 70 emergency evacuations per year.
This is also for the daily transportation of the deputies, correct?
Well, so yes, the contract includes the emergency services, so emergency medical employees, trips back and forth to the island in the mornings at their shift change, as well as during an evacuation, those employees have to get back to the island, so they evacuate a public safety individual off the island, they'll bring them back. And it does include things like other public safety officials. So a sheriff's deputy, if they need to get to the island and that's the most convenient way, they will move that. If the coroner has a need to be on the island or to transport folks, the coroner can use that, as well as other county officials as needed. And when I mean county officials, if we need a code enforcement issue or inspection or something like that, it's kind of built into that contract as well. And I think evacuation is in there as well. No evacuation for a hurricane.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was asking about evacuation services. So we have evacuation for named storm evacuation built into our other contract.
And is there any provision, if there is a storm that occurs, that they then would be our provider for county employees after a hurricane or something like
Well,
that?
for emergency, we would say first responders and public safety, yes, they are the, remove us from the island and are the first ones to be able to get us back to the island.
Okay. All right, any other questions? We have from Mr. Munson? Nope, see no questions. So would someone make a motion for us to move forward then with this contract?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. And seeing no objection, this has been approved. All right.
It'll go forward to council, sir.
Okay, so this will be moved forward to council, and this will be this will need to be a ordinance, or is this a resolution?
Just it's a contract.
So resolution?
It's over, yes, sir, it's over 250,000, so it has to go to
Okay.
council by resolution for approval.
All right, let's move on then to our next agenda item. Recommend approval to council to extend the deadline for agricultural use. Special assessment for properties located at 683 Eddings Point Road and 711 Eddings Point Road. And we have our assessor, Miss Ebony Sanders. If you please come forward. Ms. Sanders, great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is a request that I'm making to extend the agricultural use filing deadline for two properties, R300 map 16 parcel 11, as well as R300, 6, map 6 parcel 51, also known as 683 and 711 Eddings Point Road on St. Helena Island. The Sutcliffe Family Revocable Trust owns both of the parcels. And in compliance with South Carolina Code 1243 D3A, for a property to qualify for the agricultural use valuation, an application has to be presented to the assessor's office before the first penalty date for the taxes are due for the year in which they're applying for the special assessment to be claimed. The Sutcliffe's application came into the assessor's office on April 10th, 2024. The Sutcliffe, that kind of gives you some back history on the history on this property and their application. The Sutcliffes were notified in writing on April the 11th that their April 10th application for agricultural use was received, and it was received after the filing deadline of January 15th of 2024. And that's the first penalty date for the tax year 2023 year. Through their representing attorney, who's here today with me, the Sutcliffes appealed the assessor's determination. And as a result of those conversations, because of that appeal and meeting with the Sutcliffes and meeting with their attorney, it was revealed that due to a serious unexpected medical condition, Mr. Sutcliffe was not able to in a physical position to file for the agricultural use assessment by January 15th of 2024 for the 2023 tax year. Now, South Carolina legislation does provide some leniency for taxpayers who demonstrate a reasonable cause for not filing for the exemption on or before the first penalty date for agricultural use. And this is for agricultural use only for this particular leniency for an exemption through our office. South Carolina Code 1243 220 D3A continues by stating the following. It says, the governing body, county council, may extend the time for filing upon showing satisfactory to it that the person, the Sutcliffes, had reasonable cause for not filing on or before the first penalty date, which is January 15th of 2024. Council is being asked to consider Mr. and Mrs. Sutcliffe's agriculture application as timely for the tax year 2023 based on the applicant's demonstration that he and his family had reasonable cause for not filing by January 15th of 2024. Now, this is not a request from me for council to consider whether applicant warrants a refund. The timeliness of the application opens the way for me as the assessor to proceed with the refund process, as the refund provision is housed in the South Carolina Code of Law 1260-1750 and 1260-2560. To provide the governing body with an idea of the tax difference, both properties combined without agricultural use were taxed at $1,755.12 for tax year 2023. An ag use tax bill for both properties would be estimated around $30.91. Again, that's an estimate, around $31 or $30.91. The Sutcliffe's April 10th, 2024 application is considered timely for tax year 2024. So both properties did qualify for the agricultural use exemption, and they will see that on their tax bill this year.
All right, any questions for Ms. Sanders? So have they applied for the agricultural exemption in previous years?
Yeah, the prior year, before the property transferred to their trust, they received the agricultural use exemption. But because they filed the deed, now the trust owns the property, a new application is required to be submitted to our office to continue that exemption.
And the only question I have would be for legal is if we approve this, are we then opening the door for other people, once we say, oh, we're gonna make an exception here, that we'll need to make other exceptions?
Case-by-case basis.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't imagine you're going to have people lining up, but if the statute allows it, yeah, for
Okay.
sure. I mean, the legislature is very deferential to ag uses in South Carolina for property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing no more questions, is there a motion?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Howard, make the second. Is there any more discussion? All right, so we'll approve this without objection, and this is to.
Chairman, I don't object. I want to abstain on this motion at this time.
So is this something that moves to council as a resolution, or is it, are we?
It's just an application, isn't it?
Right.
It's all just an application, so I would think it's just a motion.
Is it just a motion?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. All right, it has then been approved without objection, so thank you, Ms. Sanders, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
All right.
Jonathan's on mine.
And number 14, in the discussion of the application process and procedures related to the award and distribution of awarded funds for the state 2% accommodations tax. And Ms. Tabernick, and Mr. Sullivan, who's going to be online to help us with this. Go ahead if you want to.
Yes. So this is a continuation of all of our discussions and data that I've sent to all council members that we were working on the ATAX. We had a meeting May 3rd. Several council members were there. Some staff was there. Mr. Sullivan was there. Mr. Stewart, Mr. Wells. It was an open session, and Mr. Sullivan's going to talk about what the state ATAX committee is looking forward to doing a little bit different than in the past. And he's joining us while he's on vacation, so I want to appreciate that. I see you grew a little beard there.
A little bit. I came right off the boat, and
Yeah.
I'm not too sunburnt, so that's a good thing, too.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Finance Committee. We had a great session, and Tab, I really appreciate all your work in doing this, and Christine Webb and Bryson Campbell from the Finance Committee have been fantastic. Really the biggest change that I think we discussed last time, so the way the local H&A tax request comes through for the Finance Committee, how they're viewed in the past, is through an online portal that the county controls. And with some of the changes we want to make our application process so it works the exact same way. So all the applications going forward are going to go through the county's online program. It's really a jot form. So we're working with IT and Christine Campbell in compliance so that it really will give our committee the ability to get very specific and drill down information because you can't move forward through the application process without providing the information that the committee will require. Once we go through and receive all applications this year, they're going to be due the second Friday in September, which will be, I believe it's the 12th, and they'll be due on the, by close of business, 5 p.m. on the 12th. And that gives our committee the ability to take 2 weeks to really review the applications, getting additional information we may require. And then we have a full day where we'll do a morning of presentations from the applicants. And those applicants will typically 5 to 7 minutes. They give us a presentation, a high-level overview, and it gives our committee the chance to ask questions based on things we may not understand or ask for more clarification. Following that, we typically can get through our recommendations that afternoon and get those back to committee, or from our committee back to finance. And we're hoping to do that this year by October, and that will leave finance committee and council so that they can make recommendations and release funds ideally in November. So it'll really expedite the process. One big change we're doing at the county that we haven't done in the past is this year we're going to have 2 learn sessions. So if you want to submit for the ATAX grant process, we are going to require all applicants to come to one of the learn sessions in August and the first part of September so that they can actually walk through the process with us. So myself would be there and the other committee members that are willing or have the time to join, as well as some of the members from finance, the finance team. And we can actually go through the process, how the scoring works, what is it we look for. So for example, if you're asking for funds in October, which the market's typically already heavy with tourism saturation, versus a request that might take place in January, the committee is going to be more favorable towards January requests because it's incredibly slow. And we need to generate more tourism to fund more accommodations tax dollars. So we want to walk through that in a 2 different sessions. It doesn't matter which one they come to, they'll be the exact same. But if they don't attend the session, then they're not eligible to request for these ATAX grant dollars. And we think that will really help clean up the request, so it'll get everybody on the same page. It will make the committee's role a lot easier as well when we make our final recommendations before they come back before Finance Committee. We've used a loose score sheet in the past, but this year we're going to put together, the committee's going to hopefully get together in July, and we're going to utilize a more formalized score sheet. That way it allows our committee to stay on the same page, and as the committee transitions, thankfully we have a full 7-person committee for this year. Last year we only had 5, but it will allow us to do our own internal training and create some consistency going forward. So that'll be something that we'll use internally for our committee as we go through the process this year as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and we look forward to rolling this process out this year. We think it'll make it much easier for everyone and be much more transparent to the applicants on how these funds will be put to work so that we get the best return on investment.
Any questions for Mr. Sullivan?
I'd just like to make a comment. I really appreciate all the time that you spent in your other cohorts in discussion to get to this point, and I think this is a great path forward to be fair to everyone and everybody the same, treated the same for these funds.
Sorry.
Well done.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sullivan, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I don't have a problem with what is outlined at this time. However, I need to be assured that all the recipients of previous grants are given notice of the training, and making sure that, I don't know whether they have to check off a block or whatever to say that I got the information, because I know what's going to happen. Folks going to come to council chamber and want to know what happened to us last year. We could not receive funds. I want to make sure they receive the notification about the trainings. You got one in August and one in September. And as a follow-up to all of that, I would appreciate any feedback that the recipients give you about any kind of problem they may be having, et cetera, just for my information. Not for the committee, but for my information. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, and those are all great points. So what we've, historically, the way it's worked with the application process is when the application goes online, we email anyone who's requested funds in the past. Doesn't matter if they've received funds or not. They get emailed as well. It goes into the paper as part of the statute. So for the trainings this year, we thought we'd follow that exact process for both trainings, saying, hey, the application is online, and then here's the training dates so that we could get it out so it'll be in the paper. We'll email anyone who's applied for funds in the past for all agencies, organizations, so that we really want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to attend these trainings and ask those questions. And I will tell you the feedback, not from the applicants, but from finance. I did speak with them last week. They've had a lot of great success. I know this year when we did the distributions, we did a 50%, and then the other 50% was a holdback. They had a request a reimbursement, and so far that has gone incredibly well. So that process seems to be working. More to come. I'm sure the committee will learn more about that as we go through the learnings in August and September.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Sullivan,
Absolutely.
I have a question, and that is, where is the training located?
We're going to host it there, probably in council chambers.
Oh, here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Ms. Tabernick, something you want to say?
No, I just want to thank you again, Jonathan, and also just to remind everybody on the, Jonathan made a good point. We dispersed half of the funds, and then Christine and Bryson are tracking that. So in the past, I believe we just gave them the full award of $50,000. Now we dispersed half, and they have to provide receipts, and then we'll go from there. So I think Jonathan and his committee have really tightened this up, but there's also transparency for the community to see where these funds are going, how the whole process works. So I want to thank you for joining us from Florida. Yes, and Mr. Stewart's here, and we still have to pursue the software to see if we're missing ATAX funds. So that'll have to come up in the future. Anything else,
Sounds great.
Jonathan?
No, I do want to acknowledge council and the work. I mean, we haven't done an update to this since I think it was 18 or 19, and that was the first time when we realized that more than 52% of the ATAX dollars are coming from Northern Beaufort County. And having gone through this process and doing it again, we now know it's 78%. So it seems Northern Beaufort County continues to grow. I guess the return on investment's coming more and more from Northern Beaufort County. So it's good that we probably should do that on a more routine basis every 2 or 3 years. That really gives our committee the ability to look at the applications, where they're going to spend those funds so that we know where the return on investment is going to come from back to the county. So it was great to have that information this year, and it really gives our committee the ability to kind of focus on those higher return on investment organizations for the county.
And I learned that everything's about return on investment, Jonathan and Mr. Stewart, Mr. Wells, because I said, these are just grants. And they said, nope, it's got to be return on investment. So that was a very good discussion we've had.
Is there
I did
formal
learn.
action that we need to take? Because it says just discussion.
It was just discussion.
Okay. I mean, I commend everyone for the actions that we are taking. This is, good things that we're doing.
I think it's saying move to council for approval, adoption, any recommendations, changes? Is this something we're doing?
I don't think we have to, because now they're doing the lesson, the seminar,
No.
and staff will work with them, and we'll all see it, and
No,
then
it's very
they're gonna
good.
do their process. We just wanted to make sure all of council was aware of how the process changed.
No, very well done.
Very good.
Great.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you
Thank
for
you all.
joining us from your vacation. We appreciate your job well done, and we do appreciate everything you're doing with you and your committee. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
All right, and let's move on to our final item here, recommend approval to council boards and commissions, appointments and reappointments. I think we have 2 appointments, and I'm going to ask that we approve both these at the same time unless someone has an objection to that.
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion that Mr. Bartholomew is gonna make.
The ladies out.
Make a motion to-
I was gonna say, he didn't make it yet.
It's been seconded. Is there any more discussion on the, I should probably read
The names,
the names that we've got here.
Well, Ms. Ellis and Ms. Pat Harvey?
Yeah, you want to go ahead and read them?
Yeah, please, do, for the record.
I recommend approval to the governor's office for the reappointment of Melinda Ellis to the Ladies Island St. Helena Fire Department District Commission for a 4-year term with the expiration date of June 2028. And then recommend approval to the governor's office for the reappointment of Patricia Harvey Palmer to the Ladies Island St. Helena Island Fire District Commission for a 4-year term with the expiration date of June 2028. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Seeing no discussion, is there any objection to this? Seeing no objection, it has been approved. Is there any other thing that should come before this committee? Seeing nothing, we are adjourned. It's 5:01. Appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you.